The United States Department of Justice has opened 2 investigations into South Carolina jails, but an I-Team investigation shows that might not be enough. Before we go any further, a quick warning here. Some of the video you're about to see is difficult, but the families wanted you to see it in hopes it can help others.
South Carolina has 46 counties. Each one of them has a jail, but the feds are only looking at 2 of them, the one in North Charleston and the one in Columbia. 2 of the state's larger communities where there's already a spotlight on problems. But what about some of the smaller jails? Jails like Bamberg County. Well, that's where the I-Team found Alan Thibodeau wasted away for 5 months. He starved to death. Again, that was a jail. South Carolina also has 21 state prisons. And when the I-Team went looking, we found deaths happening in the shadows there, too. Jeremy Kelly was a prisoner long before he ever served any time. As an addict, he spent years handcuffed to drugs. Eventually, his addiction led to actual handcuffs. But at the very least, his family thought, he could finally be free when he was behind bars.
You know, he's taken care of and he can't take drugs. Right. Like, I always felt like that was the safest place for him to be.
Instead, it would become his death sentence. Jeremy could always make his family laugh.
Funny, funny, funny. They could laugh and giggle like they were 3 years old again.
The father of 2 would get clean and stay clean for a while, but one slip, and he'd often find himself arrested again. A vicious cycle familiar to anyone who loves an addict.
Edgefield EMS.
July 20th, 2021. The call came from inside Trenton Correctional, a self-proclaimed ethical facility with SCDC's finest employees.
Unresponsive patient, AEDs hooked up, chest compressions being done.
That's Jeremy, out of sight, on the floor between beds. It's where he took his last breath. For years, what led up to his death has been a mystery until now. The I-Team first started asking questions back in 2021. Not long after Jeremy died, his mom started getting phone calls
From inmates saying, you are not hearing the whole story.
Now, 3 years later, the I-Team can finally show you the red flags and how a series of failures may have cost Jeremy his life. It also cost you, the taxpayer, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We begin our timeline on 4:09 a.m. on July 20th. There's a slight glitch in this surveillance video, but you see Jeremy fall out of bed. The cameras do not record any sound, so we don't know what he says when he sits up and talks to another inmate. But 1 minute later, he slumps over. An inmate goes to get help.
It's so crazy. As many times as I've watched it, every time I'm rooting for him, like, come on, boy, do it, get up, get up, get up.
Jeremy doesn't get up, not even when corrections officer Shamir Hardin arrives. According to the video, she only spends 1 minute checking on Jeremy. 1 minute. She briefly talks with another inmate, then heads back to an office. Her room goes dark at 4:47 a.m. We can't say for sure what Officer Hardin was doing in there, but she's known for sleeping on the job. She was caught sleeping twice, suspended for it both times. First, when she admitted to falling asleep while working in medical, but most recently, she was caught again a month before Jeremy died. And back to Jeremy, who is dying on the floor. The dorm lights come on at 5:05 a.m. Officer Hardin's lights are still out. Inmates notice Jeremy isn't moving, so at 5:08, one of them tries to get her attention. She eventually opens the door, keeping her distance until another officer arrives at 5:12 a.m.
So he's coming in now, about to check. Slow moving, there's no rush.
Nobody ever got in a hurry.
Officers didn't have a medical pack for mouth to mouth, so they waited to start CPR. You can see an inmate hand the corrections officer something a couple of minutes later, and chest compressions begin. There wasn't a defibrillator or AED in Jeremy's dorm. A sergeant had to run to another area of the prison to get one. It has now been more than an hour since Jeremy fell to the floor.
He's purple and blue. They started chest compressions, and they have the AED and still unresponsive.
Jeremy Kelly was pronounced dead at 6:40 a.m. The official cause, acute cardiac dysrhythmia, a heart event, which makes this timeline all the more heartbreaking. When seconds mattered, we found no one did anything to help Jeremy for 65 minutes. Officer Hardin later admitted there was a failure to act on her part that resulted in Kelly dying. Still, an investigation found no reason to charge Officer Samir Hardin with a crime. She was not fired, suspended, or even reprimanded. Instead, she kept working as a corrections officer. Eventually, she resigned, but only when she became the center of another investigation, this time for alleged misconduct regarding a relationship with an inmate.
I miss him so much.
And Jeremy's missed so much. His daughter's high school graduation, his son becoming a father. Jeremy was never able to be a grandfather. But his mom and sister believe he finally beat his addiction. Toxicology reports showed no drugs in Jeremy's system.
He was clean those last months, and he was doing well. And then they let him die. I mean, they just let him die. They just let him die. They just watched him lay on the floor and wouldn't do anything about it.
But his family did do something about it. They sued the South Carolina Department of Corrections and settled for more than $500,000, almost the max allowed. And they are not alone. Our I-Team investigation uncovered hundreds of mistakes happening in South Carolina jails and prisons. And while these families are losing so much, we found you, the taxpayer, are also paying the price. Just how much? The I-Team continues to investigate.
And we did get in touch with the former corrections officer at the center of all of this. She says she does not remember the night Jeremy died because it was a long time ago and that she would not be talking to our I-Team about it.